And then we're going a little bit more local, at least local to me in the Sacramento area. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce Roy Simpson from Cosumnes River College, who's going to be presenting on the work that they've been doing in their math department, which is really cool. And I'm very excited about what they've been doing. And I always enjoy hearing his presentation. So nonetheless, I'll hand it off to him. Feel free to take the screen, Roy.
Perfect.
And we will. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you everybody for being here today. I do know just from personal experience how overwhelming it can be at times to learn a completely new system. A little bit about myself. My name is Roy Simpson. I'm a professor of mathematics at Cosumnes River College in Sacramento. I've been there for 17 years or 18 years, something like that. And I used to be, I suppose, the technology guy there. But as time goes on, the reach of our technological reach kind of retracts a bit, I suppose. So for me, as a newer hires come on, I become less technologically savvy, I guess. But I've found that using the LibreText system has actually helped out. I didn't think first of all, I'm not into business end of things. And so a project management tool was not something that really was very sexy to me. However, once I kind of bought into it, it actually has streamlined our workflow rather than throwing around a bunch of emails to each other on my team. We just keep everything self-contained within the conductor. So what I'm going to do, I originally was just going to show like well, I could still show my my little presentation here. Go to the top. Um, but I think actually what might be better is that I spend a little bit of time kind of going through, because of the questions I was hearing, a little bit of the workflow that we go through and then what we have done. So I've already introduced myself. And by the way, if you do have questions going through this, I'll open up the chat so that I can read in chat. I'll make sure I keep my eyes open for the hands up as well. Um, so let's see. I'm just going to tell you kind of what we've done and then why we did it. But I'm also going to interject a little bit or intersperse within this how we did it. So what we did in our math department is we transitioned our entire program to OER materials. So a student can start at CRC and get through an AA or an AS, sorry, in mathematics without spending a penny on a math textbook. And in fact, in doing that, we've opened up the gateway so that our other STEM pathways could offer OER degrees as well, basically ZTC degrees, zero textbook cost degrees. And this has been a boon for us because we are in a 4 college district. We are, I would say, the third smallest college in the district, yet the demand for our classes is pretty high. And students attribute that to the fact that our textbooks are free, as opposed to some of the other colleges who still have publisher textbooks, which is fine. Even within our own department, we still have some instructors that use publisher textbooks because those instructors just aren't 100% comfortable with moving to OER. But we're really trying to do a big push to get everybody to OER if we can. What was done? See, you could see that this is a screenshot of our campus bookshelf in LibreText. Let me just actually go there really quickly. There we go. This is our actual bookshelf as of today. You can see that our mathematical ideas, I guess math for the citizen text is all OER. Our intro to college algebra, our pre-cal. There's actually a college algebra right here that we just released. Our Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 1 and Calc 2. Our Calc 3 we haven't converted yet because the OpenStax book actually does a fairly decent job with Calc 3. And then we have our differential equations, and we don't have linear algebra on here because we have a content digital lending agreement to use for our um, linear algebra. That specific text we just really like, and so we just want to keep with that specific text. But everything else in our pipeline is OER, even our stats. One thing that's missing here is the trig, and so just to showcase how the process goes, like I said, I'm going to intersperse the kind of my talk here with how I do things. So the process that I go through as a lead, and by the way, our in within our department, the process goes like this: that an instructor is a lead for a course. And then they might have two or three other instructors that volunteer to review, check, and give advice. But you have one lead, at least in our department, because we want the voice to be consistent. Otherwise, you have, if you hand out sections or chapters to different instructors, it's different approaches, all this other stuff. So you have a talk within the department about who can do a specific book and who can support that instructor in doing that. And once that happens, the process now is somewhat streamlined. It wasn't at first, but now it is. So the books that I've done the pre-calculus, the college algebra, the Calc 1, the Calc 2. And then I'm also doing the trigonometry. And so if I go up here, that gets that little rocket ship gets to this page where you guys have been talking about the conductor page. Now, I have been using LibreTexts for a while now, quite a bit, actually. And I have not clicked on a lot of the other things here because I pretty much need to get stuff done. So I just click on conductor. This is my conductor page. You see the projects that I have right here. And the one that I'm currently working on is the trigonometry for calculus. So I open that up. You guys have had the conversation today about how this page, I guess, works. You can see my team here. And one thing that I recommend is that, and I don't know if this goes against what you were told, but it works well for us, is that you have the lead. The lead can edit and do all that stuff. And then you have the auditors. Those are the people that can actually still access the book, but can't actually edit the book. Because I don't want people saying, well, I thought this change should be made, so I did it. Instead, we have discussion threads. And so in these discussion threads, you'll see people leave like little notes, like I just added 5.3 assets to the folder, da, 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 da. So this is where we house our conversations for each section. You just add those threads right here, okay, with the little plus sign. And then the assets per section. So this might be, for example, that instructor specifically was uploading extra problems, essentially. So I've created folders for each chapter, and within each folder, there are assets folders where they can upload problem sets that maybe would be useful for that section or something like that. So it is very much a team effort once it gets to the cleaning stage. But for the most part, the building stage is left to the lead on that team. And it was asked, how do you create the homepage for your department? It's actually pretty much automatic. It happens behind the scenes. So when you sign up, I think they kind of create the pages. In fact, if I go back to the college page here, when I started using LibreTexts, if I go to the campus bookshelves right here, moment. When I started using LibreTexts, Cosumnes River College was not on this third line. We were probably in the first or second line or somewhere around there. But as other instructors sign up, a footprint is made for their college. And then you start a book within your conductor page. When it's ready to go live, you let them know by just emailing info@libretext.org and saying, hey, can you make this live? And then they then make that appear within your college page. Now, there are some things, yes, you can add videos to a project. I'll show you. There are some things in here that are hidden to other instructors. For example, these lecture notes, actually 370, 400, and 420 lecture notes are private to me. So I've created those and I set them to private. Nobody can see them. And all I basically did was I'll just go to the 370 here, the 370 book. And I basically forked that. I made within the conductor page, I made my own copy of it and then pared it down and replaced examples. And I then made that, I asked them to move it into the bookshelf so that my students could access it, but I made it to where nobody else could see it. So it is accessible via the the campus bookshelf. But if you were to go to our campus bookshelf, you would not see my lecture notes. So they can see it via links I provide them. So that's kind of a nice way to do it, to have your lecture notes in there. Okay. If you want to do that. I'm getting far afield, but there's a lot that you could learn. I just don't want to do a shotgun blast of everything. So I'll make sure that I get hyper focused in a moment. Let's go back to keep me on task. Let's go back here. You could see that everything I basically said, kind of what we've converted, what we have in the pipeline. The pure trig is the very last one I think we're going to work on for a while. In the future, we're going to have our proofs course and our number theory course, and also an applied numerical analysis course on there. But for right now, this is it. I already kind of told you all these, although I heard in the previous presentation, Josh was talking about, and I'm sure that Delmar has mentioned as well, when you start a project, it's probably, in fact, it's definitely a great idea to search through the current libraries. So let me hop back over there. And what you would want to do, you can go to your subject. If it's math, it's just math.libretext.org. If you're not math, it would be chem or bio or whatever. But you would go to the bookshelves. You could go to campus bookshelves, but the campus bookshelves are all taken from the regular bookshelves. That's not actually 100% true, but for the most part, they are taken from the bookshelves. So the bookshelves, you can think of this way, that these are the standard books that have been converted for the LibreText system. And then what most people do is when they build a book, they look for the topic that they want to build their book for. So let's say you're building for a calculus. I'm just going to click on it just because it's right there. And then you look through the books that have already been pulled in by the LibreText team. So you might spend a day kind of looking through these and looking at the levels. You want to find the one, or maybe make a note, one or two, that you find to be really close to the voice that you like and covers the material that you like. You're going to edit it, but for the most part, you want as close to perfect as possible. I think that makes sense. And so when we did our calculus, I actually based it off the OpenStax calculus. There's a lot missing, but we filled that in. And then you get that basis and you pull that into your project. You make it like the basis textbook for your project. And then from that point forward, you make the modifications you need. And it's actually not terrible as long as the book is close to what you need. If it's not close to what you need, then it can be kind of a process and a half. Okay, but these are the books that we based some of ours on. The Pure Trig is based on the Yoshiwara book, plus content from the Stitz and Ziegler book. Also from the OpenStax book, I just started in there. And then it's influenced by a published book. When I say influenced, I mean, I really like a specific published book, the order of it. And so I just want to give that shout out that the order of the book that I'm looking at is based upon, or that I'm building is based upon a published book, just because I think it's a nice shout out to that author to say, hey, I really like that order. I'm not stealing anything, so that's okay. The college algebra is straight just Stitz and Ziegler and modified from there. And same thing with the pre-calculus. Right? And so you would essentially go through and do this with yours as well. You have to kind of start with something. And then the end result of all of this process of us kind of building these Nearly 72% of our sections at CRC are listed as zero textbook cost. 76% of faculty taught at least one zero textbook cost course or section last fall. A student, like I said, can earn an AS in mathematics at CRC without spending a penny on textbooks. And we also have, we use My Open Math for the digital homework. And so that's very nice because that's free if you don't know that. And as I mentioned, it allowed some of our other STEM disciplines to also have zero cost degrees. Really, really nice. Now, why was it done? Because there was a massive initiative at our college, pushed really strongly by our great president, and supported quite a bit by our president to get faculty on board to provide inexpensive, low cost, or free textbooks for students. And so the incentive was anywhere between $2,500 to $5,000 per faculty to transition at least one course. And when I say transition, it was literally some instructors, and this is no harm, no foul, it just is what it is. Some instructors just said, hey, I see somebody else is using an OER text. I'll go ahead and use that as well. The incentive paid for that. So it was good because it got everybody exposed. If you can get that type of money on campus, that'd be, our president is really good. He's a mover and shaker, so he was able to kind of really push for that. It was also done, obviously, to save students money. And in mathematics specifically, we found our success because it allowed us to align curriculum. Throughout the years, instructors were using, we would have 3 different textbooks for the same course, taught by, let's say, 10 different instructors, whatever it may be. But the campus for our pre-calculus book, students would have to have a choice of one of 3 texts, depending on the instructor they chose. And the levels were all over the place. This kind of allowed us to really target the proper levels for the curriculum, also to remove some of the fluff. We all know that publishers would like to attract as many customers as possible to purchase a book. And so they throw in this excess material that maybe a handful of instructors said, well, I need a review on this or whatever. And so this kind of put the textbook market into this spin of bloat. You find, or at least we find, that with OER text, there's less bloat because you can point students to the previous OER text if they need that review material. I don't need to, in my trig book, review how to factor because we have an OER or an OER algebra book that covers that topic, and we can point to that within the OER trig book. Same thing with our calculus. There's no need for us to review functions or trigonometry because that's just a waste of space. Not that that costs us anything to waste that space, but it just makes the digital text seem lighter, I suppose. That we could say, if you need a review of this material, please follow this link to this section of this text. It also allows you to do just-in-time remediation if you want to. This was done over the past 3 years, all the stuff we did. In fact, since 2021, I think is when we started. I could be a little bit off with the math department, but remember, we got to 73 or 76% of our 73% of our 72% of our courses being OER. In 2021, it was only 10%. So that's an astounding leap. And it was really just the incentives offered by our administration. And then you needed a champion within your departments. And I was the champion within, I championed the idea of OER within the math department. It was not hard to do because everybody was pretty much on board, wanted to go that direction. Most instructors or teachers are that way. The average timeline for a text depends. If your base text is really close to what you want, then it might only take a month or less. You could do it out of the box too. If you really like the OpenStacks, whatever, then you don't really have a ton of editing. That's great. Good for you. I have found that it's about 6 months for a usable version. Um, and that's while I'm working on other things. So I can get 2 books done in about a 6 month period. The only exception to this has been this trig book because I chose a book that had a great voice, but was in a wrong order. And if you choose a book, if you're in a discipline where order matters, mathematics is one of those. Um, there are alternative approaches where people will do things in a different order. And um, I had the text I happen to love for Trig was written by somebody who is really, I just like their style, but they do things in weird orders, which I don't like. And because of that, this has cost me around, I'm 6 months in already, and I'm about 70% done with it, but it's been a lot of work for this one specifically. So if you can choose a book that's nearest to the right order, you can change the voice, but nearest to the right order is a good idea. Um, how was it done and by whom? And this is advice that works for us. Your mileage may vary. Each text, as I mentioned earlier, has a single designer, editor, and writer. So there's one voice, one vision, one point of contact, one quote unquote expert working on the project. I think that worked well for us. Like I said, I'm not the only lead as far as for projects here. And so it was very helpful to have one person as a lead on a project. They did kind of the heavy lifting. They'd get reassigned time. Not a lot. Honestly, I got 20% reassigned time. So that's not much. That's less than a class. And you do essentially more than a full load of work in a conversion. So if you can fight for reassigned time, get a full semester off. If you can do it, it does take a while. But I don't want that to stop you or seem daunting. You can do it part-time. It is okay. I'm kind of doing it, but it's nice to have the support. Ideally, you'd have a couple other faculty reviewing as auditors on your conductor page to give advice. And this has been invaluable. Once we started using the conductor page, it has been an amazing boon for us because everybody participates and mentions like, hey, you misspelled this, all this other stuff. I generally use Grammarly after I'm done writing a section, and I paste my whole entire project into Grammarly and then run grammar and spell check. But still, it doesn't catch everything. So there is a workflow to what I do, and that is one of the final steps in my workflow is the Grammarly. But anyhow, it's nice to have other eyes on it, and it's great to have other eyes on it because they can say stuff like, "This example doesn't make sense here," or "What about this topic?" And you're like, "Oh, I forgot about that." So you do need other eyes on your project. Before you begin, browse as many textbooks as possible in LibreTexts to find the least squares fit. This is for math, but the same holds for other disciplines. Browse the bookshelf. Like I said, that's back here. I went to the math.libretext.org, but for your discipline, whatever if it's chemistry, it's chem.libretext.org and so on and so forth. But you'll have a bookshelf, and that bookshelf is a main place where I would recommend going to look at base books that you like. I'm a little bit more detailed about it, so I actually went through other campuses' books as well. So you can do that if you want. You can go through, go back to home, get me there, maybe. Yeah. You can go to other campuses' bookshelves if you want to hijack something that they have. You're not going to hurt what they're doing because you can't edit their work. But if you want to go to another college, let's say I'm just going to click on ours because I know ours. But if you go to another college, you'll see a lot of the books that they're using for their calculus or whatever subject you're teaching. You'll see those like kind books here. And you might want to take a little bit to open those up, just look through, see if it covers think about like two or three topics that you're like, I had a hard time finding good books for this in published world. Let's see if I can find good books for this in the OER world. So this is a helpful thing too. I found a couple decent books this way as well. So going through the colleges, this I'm telling you it's a good use of your time, because the time spent doing this at the beginning, it might be a day, but it could save you months in the end. So that's just something to think about, or at least weeks. So first thing, look at the bookshelves, and the second thing, look at every other campus's bookshelves if you can, um, and make a list of likes and dislikes. Once you've narrowed your search down, top choice, this should be the text with the, you tell I wrote this after I realized my damage to myself after this trig book. Your top choice should be the text with the order of topics near to perfect. Because if the order of topics is not near to perfect, you're going to be moving things like I have, where I'm like, oh man, this author talked about graphing before this topic, and now they've mixed in the language. It's a bit of a mess. So I highly recommend. Top choice should be order is right. Second choice should be the style, the voice. Last choice, believe it or not, is the one with the highest level of rigor. You can always fix that, right? Highest or lowest, whatever. But you can always fix that pretty easily, actually. That's the easy fix. The hard fix is order. That's the hardest. So find one that has a good order. I highly recommend that. And then, I mention this almost every talk I give for other things as well. You don't have to use this at all. But when I edit a text, I use something called AutoHotkey. It's free. And if you're interested, you can email me. But when I'm editing a text, so this is a text I'm currently editing right here. And so if I go into this section, I'm just going to show you something very quickly. I'm going to not touch anything, but hitting enter. So AutoHotkey basically key maps keystrokes on your keyboard. So I've mapped Control Windows key and then letters to certain things. For example, Control Windows key M creates a matrix for me. Right? So I don't have to memorize that little work or whatever. And there's a lot of little things that I do to speed this up. So you can see in the background, it looks really terrible, but that doesn't take me long to do because most of this is AutoHotkey for me. So this is just a piece of advice. If you're okay with like a key mapper, I highly recommend doing something like that. It is a godsend. It really does speed up the process. So yeah, you can see I've actually the end, because I wanted to kind of compress it down for people who do have questions. I know I'm a little scattered sometimes. So if you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I'm here to really clarify and help out from the instructor's perspective, how you would go about doing things and kind of ways that you could speed up the process if you can. So questions. I will say that like I mentioned earlier, the conductor area, getting used to that. I don't use a lot of stuff in here, to be honest with you. I just use the discussion board and the assets area, and that's all I need. And I saw the questions coming in earlier about kind of how the workflow goes. If you want to start a project, so if I go back to my projects here, if you want to start a project, actually, I think it's through here, create, but if you are working on a project, back here, and let's just say you've already started your project, once you've ingested your initial text, so you found the 80% accurate text for you, okay? So let's just pretend as though this is the 80% accurate text for you. Well, the next thing you're going to do, likely, is go an OER remixer. And what this OER remixer allows you to do is reorder things. And so for me, if you found the ordering of what you were working with not great or whatever. This is kind of where I sit a little bit when I'm doing a section, when I'm building a section. For example, I just was going through and building inverse trigonometric functions. What I'll do is I'll go into the bookshelves because there's another way to get there. And when I go to the bookshelves, I'll go to pre-cal and trig. And remember, I actually ingested this text here originally from the Yoshiwara text. So I'm going to use something other than Yoshiwara text. So I'm going to ingest from the pre-calculus. All this is available for you. And I'm going to imagine that it's probably in here. It should be if it's inverses. I don't see it in here, but it should be if it's inverses in that section or just right before it, possibly. Yeah, there we go. So let's say that I'm like, I just want a little more material and maybe some extra homework problems. So what I would do is I just grab this, put it right after this so that I can just like, take from it as I need. And maybe I'll also put the exercises right after it. Okay. And that's just a temporary placement. I'll save to server. Save to server. You have to click it twice. It does its magic in the background. When this is green, that means that it's ready for you to open up. So give it a moment. Your new text will be available via that link right there. Give it a moment. And now we were just looking at chapter 7. You open that up. And you can see now in my chapter 7, I think it might have thrown it at the end by accident. Periodic functions exercises are down here. So this is and inverse trigonometric functions are right there. So it kind of misplaced one of them. That's okay. This is the one I'm editing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this one in another tab and this one in another tab. So I have all three of them opened up here now along this tab. This is the one I am working on. But maybe I want in this material right here an extra example. I'll go to this textbook and look, maybe it has a good example of that. And so if it does, then I'll go ahead and I can't edit this page as written because you have to do something called forking the page, which basically makes your own local copy. When I say local, it's local to the project. So if I do that, it'll allow me to open it up in editor mode and I can copy whatever exercise or whatever I need or want into my project. So I could copy this language right here once I hit edit, or I copy whatever here, and then I can go back to what I'm working on and paste it in. So these are little tricks to speed things up. And same thing, I highly recommend this with homework exercises. Open up as many of the books or the sections that relate to yours that you're currently working on in LibreTexts and see what homework problems they have so that you can pull them in. You're going to likely have to edit or reword, but that's another piece of advice I think is really nice to follow. And the last thing I'll mention here is that I do use ChatGPT to generate homework problems as well. And just to let you know, ChatGPT is often wrong. So in fact, it's not this set, but I had it generate 150 questions for proofs the other day. And of those, 25 were actual correct, like identities. So you do have to check. Luckily, there was a lot of repetition there. So, but you can use the new AI resources to speed up at least homework generation. And good news is when you copy this, it copies in LaTeX, and that pastes very nicely into your LibreTexts page. So if I scroll down into the homework area down here, if I were to paste some of that material, paste and be formatted properly, it's really nice. Questions or anything that Del Mar wants to add in?
That was beautiful.
Perfect.
Uh,
All right.
for those of you that And so Roy stole my mojo for the remixing talk I'll be giving in 20 minutes. So if you
Sorry.
didn't catch what he was going for, I'll be going over it in detail. And he also stole some of my mojo tomorrow in editing and forking and such like that. So if you didn't catch that from there, at least he set the groundwork for me to be able to build upon. I will mention that later on this month, we're going to be releasing a AI tutor that's associated with books. So basically, digest a book, and you're able to query the book uh, via our interface. That same infrastructure is going to be is currently being tweaked so that it can couple into the Adapt homework system, so you can build questions and automatically populate them into Adapt with appropriate review, because these large language models are really pretty piss poor when it comes to math
Yeah.
calculations. So when it comes to STEM fields, you have to be very careful. Not that you don't have to be careful about the other ones, but they are notoriously difficult because they're just largely glorified statistical models. They're not really true computational infrastructures. So,
Yeah.
anyways, there were a lot discussions in the chat, and we tried our best in order to be able to address it. So it might be a good time in order to thank Roy again for giving this beautiful presentation. What they're doing in Cosumnes is really great. I'm very excited in order to watch what they're doing and being part of that. And I presume if anyone has any questions, they can contact you directly. Is that a fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
I placed my email in the chat, simpsor at crc.losrios.edu. Um, I normally during the semester it's hard for me to contact back, but summertime, I'm home this summer. It's too hot to go anywhere, so I can answer back somewhat quickly.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.